We'd like to just finish our child nutrition session with 10 golden rules for feeding your children, and I hope that you enjoy it. And it is going to emphasize using the positive approach. Remember that you are the adult and you are the boss. That doesn't mean you have to lay down the law, because we know that that doesn't work. But you are in charge and you need to set the boundaries. Have you ever noticed from a time that a child is born, even when it's very young, and it starts to realize that it has some influence, that boundaries are to be pushed? Kids very quickly work this out. Now, if you allow them to push those boundaries too far, you'll find that then they are in charge and you are running. And so what we want to say here is that you are in charge. You are the boss. And you need to set the boundaries with love, not in any harsh way, because that doesn't work. Don't let your children dictate what they should be eating. You decide what they're going to be eating. They can decide how much they're able to eat, but you need to decide what they are going to be eating. Explain to them that you are the mummy or the daddy, not so that you are the boss, but you want to provide the best food for your children. And the reason? Not to punish them, but because you love them and because you want them to grow up healthy. When your child says to you, "I don't like this," try not to give up the first time. Sometimes it takes about 10 times before a child will even have a go at some food. So don't say, "Well, tomorrow I'll give it the food again, and if the child isn't really happy, well, we won't have that anymore." It actually can take 10 times or more by presenting a certain food before a child will accept it. Whenever they let you know that they don't want their food, you may be sitting at the table and they say to you, "Oh, Mummy, I'm not hungry." Do you know that that could actually mean various things? It could mean, "I'm a bit scared of this new food." And when children are small, we may not even stop to think about that, but they may look at it and say, "Oh, I don't think I want that." And so that's one reason. "I'm not really hungry at the moment," and that can also be because of a variety of factors. We spoke in our last session about filling up on snack foods in between meals, and they're just not hungry. And that may not mean that they don't like the potatoes or the peas or the carrots or whatever you've got on the plate. It may just mean that their tummy's full because of what they've consumed through the afternoon session, and we'll just call that the afternoon session. Or it could also mean, "I'm not interested at the moment." And that's one as well. Their mind is on other things. And so be careful when they say, "I don't want that." It doesn't actually mean, "I don't like it and I'm never going to eat this." There may be different reasons why a child would give you those thoughts. Regularly introduce new foods at an early age, or new flavours, I should say, which is probably part of food anyway. Even before the child is weaned, while you are breastfeeding your baby, having various foods come into your system, there will be certain flavours, I'm told, that are passed on through the breast milk. So that's interesting, isn't it? And certainly when they start to eat solids, then that's a time where you can introduce some new flavours. And so as your child grows, think of introducing some variety into your child's diet. A whole lot easier than trying to do that when they start going to school, or when they're halfway through primary school and say, "Well, now they're old enough. Now I can explain to them." It actually starts way back. And you might say, "Well, my child is 10 years old and we have a problem here. So how am I going to, I can't take him back to when he was born." Work with him gently. But again, like we said before, you are the mum or you are the dad or you are the carer, And what you are doing for that child, let him know it's because you love him and because you want his body to be healthy, that you want him to do well at school, and give him small amounts to start with. Hide it underneath something if you have to. And there are ways. Soups are wonderful. You can put various things in soup, particularly if you've got one of these stick mixers. And if your child enjoys pumpkin soup, well, make sure that the main colour is orange, and you can put other vegetables in there as well. Be adventurous. One of the best gifts that you can give your children is for them to have a feeling of adventure when it comes to trying new foods. Now, children are individuals. Adults are individuals too. And certainly some people just love trying new foods. And other people you'll find, well, I'd just rather stay with what I've got. But try and help them to be adventurous with their food choices. Train their taste buds to enjoy different flavours, because we train our taste buds. You train your child's taste buds. You ever thought of that? You do. And so give them some variety of flavour, not just sugar, fat and salt. Because for many children, that seems to be the flavours that they have learned to appreciate and that they are looking for. Sugar, fat and salt. And so give them a variety of good food, of plant foods that have got flavours and textures, and that also have this great abundance of nutrients to keep their bodies regulated and also to help their brain to go and to keep their immune systems nice and strong. The other point is that we need to be a good role model. Doesn't really work when you say to your children, eat all of these things, and you're on the side eating other things. You need to be a role model. When your children realise that you're eating a good variety of foods, they will be more inclined to follow you. And let them know that you enjoy this healthy food. Make it a good, positive experience. Not sit there and say, well, I've got to eat all this because otherwise I can't have my ice cream at the end. And that's very common, isn't it? Bribes, and we'll come to that in just a moment. They really don't work, even though they seem to. Reinforce your child's positive behaviour. And so whenever you get the chance and your child, whether it is in play, but we're talking food at the moment and meal times, when your child is able to sit down and eat some foods that you know have perhaps are fairly new, let him know how very pleased you are. And also let him or her know how important those foods are for a healthy body and a healthy mind. Do you realise that often what a child is hoping to hear from his parents is praise, approval, and love? And so using those expressions when you're talking about your pleasure in what they have eaten or what you are planning for the next meal is very important. Take advantage of your child's appetite. Do you know that it's not wrong for your child to actually feel hungry? There are times when we feel that that may not be right. They mustn't get hungry. In fact, it helps your child to tune in to their own natural appetite, which in turn will help them with their eating habits and even with their weight in later life. You don't have to eat all day. The brain has all sorts of signals that it gives to adults as well as to children. And if you are eating constantly, as soon as the contents of the stomach is reduced, there will be a signal that goes up and says, well, we need a little bit more here because it's getting empty. That needs to be empty for a short amount of time. It needs to be a little rest time. All organs need a rest. And then the child will be able to eat their food better when they are at meal times. Keep the home eating environment emotion-free. We mentioned a little of that in the last session. Don't force feed foods, because this type of behaviour we very well know is counterproductive. And so force feeding doesn't work. Many have tried it, and some feel that we've accomplished something because we've made him eat it. You'll find that most likely as that child grows, they'll say to themselves, when I'm away from mum and dad, I am never going to have this food again because I hate it. And so force feeding doesn't work. Help them to see the benefits, help them to have small amounts. And as we said earlier, all children will have their likes and dislikes. And if there's only a couple of things they don't like, that's not the worst. But if there's only a couple of things they do like and the rest they don't like, well, then you've got a job ahead of you. Your food storage habits in the kitchen, they may need some changing too. Or you may need to do a little stock take and see, well, what have I got in this cupboard? Keep healthy food available and special food, and there is nothing wrong with having special foods. Keep them out of sight. Have you noticed that when kids find them, if they haven't already just taken some, they will come and ask you and say, Mummy, can I have some of this? Because they know it's there. And they might drive you mad, and you might have had a busy day and say, well, go and have some. And if it happens once in a while, that's probably not the worst, but not a real good idea. So keep healthy foods there for them and keep the treat foods well out of sight. Having some fruit or some vegetables peeled and cut into pieces that, you can just pick up, sometimes with a little yogurt dip if you wanted to, that is helpful. And you will be surprised when children see a plate of nice fruit and vegetables cut up, if it is necessary for them to have some food in between meals. If it's nicely done, they will be more likely to eat it than even to give them an apple as its whole. If you cut it up, they're more likely to eat it when children are younger. Stay cool, calm and collected and consistent. And you might say, well, that's all right for you to say. But, I'm really busy. I've had a bad day at work. Now I've come home and I've got to prepare food for these kids. If you allow meal times to become a will or a battle of wills, you are not going to achieve very much. That doesn't work. We need to stay cool and do not give in to children's demands or tantrums. There are times when we have done this for whatever reason, but I think you and I know that the outcome is actually not positive when that occurs. And so do not give in to those demands. Let them know reasons why you're not going to give in to them. It's not that you don't like them. It's not that you want to deprive them, but it's because you love them. And so when it comes to the time where your children are eating well, you have followed all of those rules and you've spent some time talking to them, you can congratulate yourself when your child eats well, because you are really providing them with the best start in life. They may even thank you for that as they get older. They may not, but they may. And so family meal times need to be happy times. Anything that needs to be discussed that is of a negative nature, and there will be some, always, do not do that at meal times. Use other times for that. And so meal times need to be happy. I want to share with you just a few negative comments that we need to keep right away from. Don't bribe your children to eat. We've probably all done it. Not a good idea. And so we're going to look just at a few negatives, and then we're going to finish off by looking at some positives. The second one, that's a negative one. Don't lose your cool when things go wrong. That's not easy either, but you practice it and you remember that it's for the good of the child not to lose your cool as things go wrong. The other one is don't eat in front of television. Many, many children and adults eat in front of television, and it is considered not to be such a worthwhile practice. You are better to sit at the table where you can communicate. And personally, I like the television to be off when I sit at the table, so we can just eat, enjoy the meal, and also communicate. Another important one, and this is still looking at the negatives, is not to give different messages to your partner, to your wife, or to your husband. Make sure that those messages are very much the same. Because if you don't agree, children very quickly pick this up and they'll say, I'll be on mum's side or I'll be on dad's side. And that also is a negative. Another one, don't make too much of a deal when you're trying to change your children's behaviour. If they know that things are being changed, it's not going to work so well. The more obvious you make the change, the more resistant that they're likely to be. So just go easy, a little at a time. Now let's look at positives. These are the important ones, aren't they? Make sure your family sits down at the table for meals, at least most of the time. There may be some times where you might be in front of television or whatever, but most of the time you should really be sitting at the table. That is a really good habit to get into, and if you haven't done that for a while, I would suggest that you start doing that. As I mentioned, if the television's on in the lounge room and you're now in the dining room, make sure that television set is switched off, so children can concentrate on their eating. Another really positive is to let your child either help plan, or even as they get older and there are older brothers and sisters, actually prepare a meal, say once a week, or more times if that's going to be helpful. But say once a week that they help you, or they actually prepare the meal themselves, and you may work together to prepare it, but they choose the meal themselves. Do you know, dads, what's really important is that you play a key part in the meal role. And you might say, well, I'm at work and mum cooks the food. How can I play a part? You need to find a way to play a key role at meal times. It may not be in the food prep, but it needs to be related to a meal time. That's a real positive for the children. Salads and vegetables, so away from behaviour. Salads and vegetables placed in the middle of the table, and let the children serve themselves. You might say, well, I know very much what my Johnny's going to do. He's not even going to touch it. You can help serve it, but it's nice if they can actually serve themselves. Another good positive one is to have a clear list of rules and stick to them. Not rules as in you must do this and you mustn't do that, but just, again, it's those boundaries. Make sure that they are clear to the children, and then you need to make sure you stick to them. And the last one of the positives is to make mealtime fun. Not to be sitting there and rolling in laughter, but make it a happy time, because kids will relate to that. And as I said earlier, the digestive system actually works better when everything is happy and relaxed. And this is the last comment. Our children are a precious gift. And I'm sure you agree with that. Give them the best possible start in life. Thank you.